How's it going, everyone? Thanks for joining me on my small engine repair channel. Today's project is on this Toro recycler push mower with the personal pace self-propel system. And what I'm going to show you how to do today is a quick carb change. So stay tuned. Alright guys, so this one hopefully is going to help some people out. And you know, about 80-90% of the problems I see with a lot of these small engines, it has to do with carburetor issues. So I mean, you could pick up a carburetor brand new off the internet, shipped to your door. In the States it's probably like 12 bucks, Canada maybe around 20 bucks. So it's making it very difficult to justify actually taking these things apart and cleaning them. I do tend to do that anyways, just because I want to keep some crap out of the landfill. But anyways, this one is specifically with the Autochoke system on a Briggs and Stratton quantum engine. Okay, so if this is the kind of setup you have, this is the exact video for you. If it doesn't have the Autochoke setup, if it has a primer setup, this is very similar, if not exactly the same, with the exception of a couple small things which I'll point out here. So first thing you're going to need to do, on this one there was a little cover here, which was a little Phillips screwdriver. I already removed that. Now I'm going to remove the top cover, which is 2 Phillips screws here on the top. 1 and 2. Alright, that one doesn't want to come out, that's fine. So then you have to kind of push forward from the back here, because there's a little tab back here, and then just lift it up. Okay, that exposes this whole top section. Now you're going to need a 5/16 socket or nut driver or impact. Okay, and then there's 3 5/16 here to remove the air filter assembly. Set those aside. Now back and behind here, there's a gasket. Okay, so sometimes with the primer system, this gasket plays an integral role in how the primer system works. This one doesn't have a primer system, but still has a gasket. Not as crucial on these ones. If yours does have a gasket, if it's torn, make sure you replace it. Or a lot of times I like to just double up on this gasket. That helps if your primer is not working. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is I'm going to remove the spring here for the return spring for the Autochoke. Part of the Autochoke system. This is part of the Autochoke system here. So don't lose that spring, because it will fly across the room and you won't find it. Next thing, there's a 1/4 inch bolt here. I like to do this one by hand. A bit of a longer bolt, and I'm just gonna leave this here for now. Hopefully I can get away with not having to remove the whole cover. Alright, so I just move that up and out of the way. Then there's a spring up here. You just remove this end of the spring. Let me get you in on that. Alright, so we're going to remove this end of the spring by just kind of pulling out on this part of the spring. I'm just kind of doing this one hand while trying to film as well, which isn't the easiest thing to do, but you kind of get the gist of what I'm doing. It's actually easier if I have 2 hands and I can hold this throttle valve. So there we go. Alright, so I just leave that spring hanging there off the other end. Next thing, if there's any fuel in the tank, make sure you kind of block off the fuel with some fuel cap pliers like this. I'll leave a link down below for where you can find those on Amazon. They're fairly inexpensive. Or you can use some vice grips. Just make sure you don't clamp it down too hard. take yourself a set of pliers and remove the fuel line clamp, move it out of the way, and then try and get your fuel line off. Okay, a little bit of fuel will spill out. Alright, so now we are ready to remove the carburetor. There's two 3/8 bolts right here. So I will remove those. And then the one last thing holding it on is going to be the linkage for the throttle, from the governor to the throttle plate. Okay, now for this one, I'm going to hold my finger here on the fuel inlet, because if I turn this 90 degrees, the fuel will dump out. So here, there's a Z-bend, so you pull it down and then rotate it 90 degrees. And this one's a little bit sticky. There we go. And it goes in this hole. This isn't a hole actually, so it goes in this hole. Right, so that's how we remove that carburetor. We're going to put our new carburetor on. Just the reverse. Okay, start with the linkage. So turn it 90 degrees all the way on and then rotate it up. Okay, now there is a rubber O-ring right here. Okay, a lot of times it does stay on the intake tube. So just make sure that's on there. And get your 3/8 bolts and just get them started by hand. You don't want to cross thread these things. This one might be hard to get started by hand just because I can't reach in there. So I will be very careful not to cross thread this. If it gives you any resistance at all when you first start, then obviously it's not on properly. Okay, so that's on nice and tight now. Alright, put our spring back on the circle part of the linkage, just like that. So that's good. Put our fuel valve on, or fuel line on, and put your clamp there. We go, clamps back on. I can remove the fuel line pliers right away, so that way if I have any issues with the needle and seat of my new one, it'll manifest itself by leaking out fairly quickly within 2 minutes or so. It takes about 2 minutes to fill up, maybe a minute to 2 to fill up the bowl. Okay, I'm going to put this little sort of inlet into the U part.
I'll look at it and let you know. Oh, it's not a big deal. As long as I paid it.
Okay, I'm going to do this one by hand, 1/4 inch. Okay, so that's good. I can put my spring back on now. And this spring goes from, it's going to be very hard to see if you're not sure. There is a tab right at the end of my finger right there. Again, impossible to see just because there's no light there. And it goes and wraps around this little part right here. So one end on that part, another end here, and that just keeps tension on that choke assembly. Okay, so that looks good. Now we're ready for the air filter assembly. So you want to make sure that the crankcase breather tube here goes on this little inlet. Alright, just line all that up. Just leave it for now. Okay, try and get these 3 screws started first. By hand if you can. Right, and then cinch them down. Now you don't want to over tighten these, because you could potentially warp this air filter housing. They do have to be snug. Okay, we're ready for the air filter itself. Goes back in. Okay, I can put the lid back on. And again, this little tab back here fits in. Do little flips. This hand take, because it's basically into plastic, so it's pretty easily. Okay, that's good. And then lastly is this little cap section here. Again, just the Phillips. And that is everything, guys. So hopefully this was informative for you guys. Quick little video. It's not that difficult to change your own carburetor with a few tools, basic tools. So if it helped you out and you like the video, please go ahead and smash the like button down below. And if you're not a subscriber, consider doing so. I do post videos just like this each and every week. And so hopefully you join the channel. And thanks for watching. Till our next project, take care.